In today's video, we're going to talk about what it means to be multiple. Hey, what's going on YouTube? Mr. Football here. And today I wanted to talk about the philosophy of a multiple front defense. So I've always kind of considered myself just to be a multiple front person, I guess you'd say. I've always liked the idea of being able to change just by simply calling something else and getting into a different look, and not making necessarily wholesale changes. So I want to talk about what I think it means to be a multiple front defense. If you think multiple simply means you're the difference between, say, a 4-3 and a 3-4, and you also use a 33, and then you 4-2, and then you're 4-2-5. That's not what I think is multiple. I think you have to start with some base philosophy. You have to have home base. Like some front that you have has to be home base. So if 4-3 over front is your home base, like that's what you base everything out of. You don't jump from philosophy to philosophy, because a lot of defenses, when you really get into it, like not a lot changes with defense. Like it's just a numbers thing. It's what people call stuff. Personally, I think that like the 4-3 is way different than the 4-2-5. I mean, completely different in a lot of ways, and it's all based on the players and how you use them. But I think the multiple front philosophy can be utilized in all defenses. Personally, I only think that there's a couple of defenses that can be legitimately structurally. I mean, you have the 4-3, you have the 3-4, you have like a 4-4 or 4-2-5, depending on how you call it and what you make those players to be. And then you have a 33 or 3-5-3, however you want to call it. But like, I don't think it's all based on what you call it. But out of that whole talk, because people get an argument with me over like what you call it, but I don't really care. But the main point I want to get to is like you can apply a multiple front philosophy to each defense system that's out there. And a lot of defensive systems will have, multiple fronts kind of as a base, but I don't think you need 20 fronts. I don't think you need a front to stop every single thing. You do need to have a home base, but you need to have answers for everything with home base. So if 4-3 over front is our home, and that's where we're going to basically teach our players day one, then like there's going to be everything to this has to have answers. So when they come out in a different look, the offense comes out in a different look, you've got to be able to adjust and it not break your defense. So I wanted to just kind of talk about like kind of where I've come from with multiple fronts. My kind of where it all started for me was learning the 4-3 defense and having some of the early on when I was a coach have a little bit of the reign, and kind of calling some of this stuff. And it all kind of stems back to, I guess it was about 2015. We were installing the 4-3 over front, and we were calling this. It was essentially a multiple front defense. We had different looks. We essentially had several different fronts, and I believe I've shown that playbook online before, and just kind of shared some of our fronts that we use. I don't use this system anymore. Back then it was broken, and I don't believe that we were it just wasn't right. But it helped me learn run fits, and it helped me learn all of the things that needed to, that you had to have defensively, that really wasn't ever taught to me. But it made more sense learning the 4-3 and then eventually adopting the 4-2-5 as home base. But we're going to look at the 4-3. I enjoy talking about the 4-3. It's fun to look at just because everybody usually knows it. And the way that we utilized multiple fronts in the 4-3, a simple one that a lot of people do, is, and the main thing that I'll talk about is like these fronts can't change your defense philosophy. They're going to move parts because essentially your front six or front seven guys that you use in the box, you can move these parts around. So like an easy one is doing like a G front. A G front simply means that we're going to line the nose and a 2-eye, and it's the G front. So he's going to line inside eye of the guard. And in all reality, it doesn't change anything for the Mike backer. It doesn't change anything for the nose. It just bumps him out half of a gap. He's just sliding over from shading on the center to shading inside eye of the guard. He still has the same gap, but there's different philosophies behind like why you move into a G front. It helps weak side ISO. It makes it harder in my opinion, personally, for like inside zone teams. Try to get a one-on-one block there. But that was like an easy adjustment. Some people base out of a G front, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. We started home base with the over front. Another front that we used in the 4-3 was the underfront. The underfront gave us a different look up front, but it did make some changes in personnel based on, what you're putting down here. So, we were sliding our defensive end down, moving the sandbacker up, putting him on the line. And, you shuffle the linebackers around. It essentially gives you a 5-man front, but it does change the run fits a little bit. And so like when you basically use the underfront as kind of a run stopping package or a run stopping front. And I've never really, I like the underfront, but it never seems to really work well for our team because we play so much over front. And when we switch to under, it's like our kids don't get it, but like, everybody's kids are a little different. But like, that was just it was a big change in that way too. With the overfront, you can get, or excuse me, the 4-3, you could almost get into, a bear look in certain cases, and change the front in different ways. You just have to be ready to like understand what gaps change when you start sliding players around. This is one of the things that I don't think works for being multiple front. It's not about the philosophy of confusion. It is not about confusing the offensive line, because if the offensive line is worth anything, they'll pick this up really easy. So fronts, they're pretty cheap. Like you can install them and run them, but you shouldn't be installing, 12 different fronts in a game plan. We don't carry very many into a game plan, but we do have changes. And it's the sole purpose of being multiple is not for confusion, because if the offensive line is worth anything, they will pick up your scheme and they'll make adjustments, because if the offense works, and they will, they'll have blocking schemes set up for anything. So it won't matter, if they're a power running team and then you give them a different front, they're just gonna block power, because power can be blocked versus any front. So like, you can, that's not the sole purpose, because transversely, if you're putting in too many fronts, what'll end up happening is, you're going to end up confusing your players as well. So personally, we don't run, all of these different fronts. We have fronts for different situations. We have a third down front that we use, and we did use in the 4-3 package way back when, and we would still use this today, but all we would do is widen out and have an outlaw front and try to get one-on-one blocks and pass coverage. So basically, once again, it was just a one gap move, but we moved the nose out to a 3 and try to get a one-on-one rush. And so it might be even a passing situation. But when you start getting into different fronts, you got to understand that there are going to be some different bubbles that happen that the offense will try to exploit. Another one that I really like is double 2 eyes. That's another one I don't really like it in the 4-3. I like it more in the 4-2-5 stuff. So that's going to be kind of one of the main differences. But I consider myself to be multiple because we like to just change things, not necessarily for the confusion of the offense, but we like certain fronts versus certain looks. Um, so, I like to play double two eyes versus option teams. Like that's just a personal preference. But, those are all just kind of different things. But like I said, that's just kind of my take from the perspective of, being multiple. Um, it doesn't have to, like I said, it doesn't have to necessarily be at forefront. We can run a 4-3, excuse me, 3-4. We can run a 3-4 and we can do different things. So if you base 4-0-4, meaning you have a 4, a nose and the 0, and then you're in there. So 4-0-4, you can do different things. Where, you can slide a gap over and do different things like that. You can slide away and have different, fronts. Even with that, you can, change it to where we use stuff like this. We will kind of run a front like this, but we'll use a linebacker defensive end type hybrid to essentially kind of be our edge rusher or be just a guy that can kind of even be athletic enough to pick up a running back, but essentially be in the run fit down here for sure. So there's just, like I said, there's different looks that you can get into. Based on this. I've coached in about every defense. I've played in multiple defenses. And so that's kind of where, it all came from. Way back when I played in high school, we were a 5-2 team, but, we were 4 eyes, head up, nose, and stand up defensive ends that were our 9 techniques. But in most general terms, they were also outside linebackers. So, it's like I said, it's just a numbers game. Fronts, they're easy to install, but I don't think if you want to be multiple front, I don't think you need 20 fronts. You need simple tweaks that, could help you versus certain teams, but you don't want to run everything and with the sole purpose of confusing the other team because you're not going to get that accomplished. And if you start running multiple fronts, you're more likely to, depending on age of your players, going to end up confusing your players more so than not. So, anyway, that was just kind of the take on the philosophy of how I think multiple front should be. I think you can be multiple, run simplistic stuff in coverage and be fine and run a very sound defense. But you've got to make sure that your run fits are in order because when you start moving parts around, things do change. So when you do, move one of your defensive tackles out, you're going to leave gaps open. And you've got to make sure that, everybody on your defense knows that, what gaps are covered, who has what gap responsibility on certain plays. Not that gap responsibility matters on each and every play, but it has to, it can't be broken. So, if the offense comes out in a different formation, you've got to have adjustments in that so that, your defense doesn't become broken. So there's just all kinds of little tweaks that you have to do in order to make sure that you're sound. So like I said, that's just some things on multiple fronts. I enjoy talking about multiple front. That's how I've learned defense over the years. And I'm a coverage guy too. I love coverages. I think there's really 2 philosophies. You either play one defense and that's what you do. Play one defense, one coverage, very good at it. That's super simplistic. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You also have the idea that you can be multiple front. Some people will be multiple coverage, but play one front. So there's all kinds of different looks that you can take with this, but you do have to make sure that you're sound in what you do. And there's got to be a rhyme and reason why you do the stuff you do. So hope that was helpful. I hope that hopefully you're just kind of seeing the point of multiple fronts. Like I said, it's not about changing from 4-3 to 3-4 to 4-4. It's not about that. It's about changing the defensive line front and the linebackers alignments, to get what you want. So anyway, that's all for me today. If you guys will, check out my Instagram, Mr. Football Coach. Give me a follow on there. And I'm also on Twitter now as well. For those of you that haven't been around for a while, I did get back on Twitter. I may not be as active on there, but, it's there. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for you guys for watching this video. Be sure to check back next week for the next video, and we'll see you guys next time. I'm Mr. Football, and I'm out of here.
Perfect. Perfect. Perfect.